Another day, another Grand Slam champion departs the Australian Open as we conclude the first round on day 3, unusually. Welcome to the AO show. Chris Bowers, commentator. You had a look at Danielle Collins, who defeated Angelique Kerber in 1 hour 52 minutes today. A bit of a swinging match, 6-2, 3-6, 6-1, but we see the 2016 champ depart at the hands of Danielle Collins.
Yeah, I felt that actually that was a good defeat. I felt a bit the way it was for Osaka, that for Kerber to take a set, I think was very good. She lacks matches. Even if she hadn't given birth, there would still be that need for matches after such a long time off. And I think winning a set will make her feel good. I mean, she'll be disappointed when she comes off court, of course. Everyone is when they've lost a match. But when she processes it, I think she'll be thinking that is a good result. And maybe she'll be almost happier than the winner, strange as it may sound.
Yeah, well, Danielle Collins is someone that you never quite know what you're going to get when you watch Collins compete in the heat of battle. But I think it's interesting, Chris's observations on Kerber, and I'm inclined to agree. Some of the things, though, that have caused her some challenges over the fullness of time, again, and naturally enough, raised their ugly heads, for want of a better phrase, today, in terms of her struggle on second serve. Now, she's not someone that's going to have ever an overpowering second serve. She tends to go to work with her physicality and her mentality in behind her second serve. But in set 1 today against Danielle Collins, when she's winning 11% of points on her second serve, and then in set 3 where she's winning 22% of points on her second serve, those are numbers that she'll need to build on. She'll need to improve as we see more and more of her on this comeback, on this Angelique Kerber Mark II journey, if you like.
Well, Chris, what were the things that made Angie Kerber Mark I such a good player?
She very, very seldom missed. She would get so much back. When I first saw her, I thought, well, yeah, she's going to be a top 10, but will she ever win a major? I'm not sure if she has the weapon. I also felt the serve was a weakness for her. And yet she built the serve up to a point where it was never a weapon, but it wasn't a weakness. Yep. And she really did use the court superbly well. So she turned, in a way, a counter-punching game into a game where she could dictate. And when she won here for the first time against Serena Williams, that's the counter-puncher. Up against the big-hitting Serena Williams, that was fine. But she won other matches just because she was smart. And she's smart on a tennis court. She just knows which place to put the ball in and generally makes it. And that was what was such a success. And I think 3 Grand Slam titles, but it's 3 more than I thought she'd get when I first saw her play.
Well, I think Chris makes some outstanding points. And I think Angelique Kerber, what she does have is she has the mentality of an absolute champion. And she's a phenomenal competitor. And so it's with that in mind that I think that she is every chance of getting back to those lofty heights. Okay, Grand Slam title holder or Grand Slam champion is a very lofty target to be setting. But I think she can find herself absolutely in the fullness of time in the business end of these Grand Slams again. But I think Chris has also touched on some of the things that are going to take some time to evolve in her game. So her physicality, her competitiveness, typically I would expect when Kerber's at her best, those longer points to be her absolute forte. That's her one wood, her bread and butter, if you like. But today in set 1, when the rallies went beyond 5 shots, Collins won 9 of those rallies, Kerber only 4.
Okay.
And in set 3, when the rally went beyond 5 shots, Collins won 7, Kerber only 3.
Yeah, that's telling.
But that's just a lack of matches. And it's the same really with Osaka. When you saw Osaka in her match against Caroline Garcia, it was the same sort of thing. The points that you would have expected her to win 2-3 years ago, she was missing. But again, I just think that's matches. We sometimes miss the essential fact of winning a tennis match at this level is to have played enough matches that on the really big point, on the shot that matters, you are confident it'll go where it's supposed to. You know, if you're playing at club level or even regional level, however well you play, you can hit several good strokes. But if one of them doesn't come back, you win the point. If one of them misses, you lose the point. And that is the big key. At this level, you've got to know exactly where you're hitting. And that just takes time.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. And so when I look at the data or the breakdown of the contest today, I'm with Chris a little bit. I think I'd be heartened if I were in the Kerber camp. I think I'd take the positives out of being back. And And I think there's a lot to be excited about. And I'm certainly not going to question her competitiveness, her physicality, her want and her desire to return to those lofty heights, the peaks of Grand Slam tennis in the second week. And I think she can get back there in the fullness of time with working on some of these things that evidently brought about some of her undoing today against Danielle Collins.
I think she has an advantage over Collins, actually, which became clear today, and that is that as a grandee of the game, Kerber now gets a certain amount of support because people remember her as a Grand Slam champion, as somebody at the top of the game. Collins, I keep wanting to like Collins because of her background. You know, she didn't come from massive affluence. It wasn't poverty, but it was, you know, her parents had to give up an awful lot for her to just to have a chance before anyone else could come in with sponsorship money. And I like that, and I wish players with that kind of background well. There is something about Danielle Collins, about her manner on court, that makes it harder for people to identify with her and to say, yeah, go on, I want you to win this.
She's fierce.
Yeah, there's that indefinable something. You know, we have it with our friends. Some people have a magnetism that others don't have. And I just think Collins doesn't quite have that air about her on a court that makes a crowd say, oh, yeah, I want to get behind this woman. And in a way, that is going to make it harder because on those little moments when you've got the crowd either with you or with your opponent, today they were largely with Kerber.
And I don't think Danielle minds that. I
don't think she does.
You know, back against the wall, and the street fighter in Danielle Collins absolutely came to the fore. And you could see a bit of venom almost being directed towards her own coach's box today, you know, this afternoon out on court 1573. And I think that's when she's at her most dangerous. And ultimately she prevailed. She got it done.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that she doesn't mind. But I do think that it may mean that that little indefinable something that a crowd gives you is not always available to her.
Just very quickly, while we're on this match, are we likely to see one of the four mothers who've returned this year win a Grand Slam anytime soon, do you think, Chris?
I hope so. If we're going to see it here, it's going to be Svitolina. I mean, for her to get to the semi-finals at Wimbledon, sort of on about the 10th tournament back, was pretty impressive. She's playing well enough that she could do it. I don't see the champion from the women's singles coming out of the top four, outside the top four. I think it's going to be one of the top four. But if it is going to be someone outside, Svitolina could do it. I believe Osaka will put herself in a position to win another major. But again, she needs the matches. And given that she's such a hard-court player, I don't see her being ready to win a major until at least this year's US Open, probably not till next year.
Okay, turning our attention to day 4 now, and Novak Djokovic will be back in action. He was tested in the first round against a Croatian qualifier whom very few of us had heard about. This time he'll have Alexei Popyrin, a man who has a very, very parochial following here at Melbourne Park. Chris, what's this match going to be like?
I have a horrible feeling for Popyrin that he's going to catch Djokovic on the rebound. I mean, Djokovic, he can afford one long match in the first round. He was saying that although the wrist problem that affected him when he lost to de Minaur has gone, he hasn't been feeling totally 100%. He's been a bit under the weather. And I think having had the 2 days to recover, he will say, right, okay, I don't need to win this in an hour and 40 minutes, but I don't want to go to 4 sets if I can avoid it. And I suspect that Djokovic is going to come out with a degree of determination that wasn't apparent when he played Prismic.
Well, I think no one asks more questions of you in Grand Slam tennis than Novak Djokovic, does he? And I think the other night, as we saw, I think Prismic was able to answer in the affirmative for large parts of that match. The one thing I will say when looking ahead to this contest tomorrow night is I think Popyrin's got the weapons to be capable of answering some of those questions in the affirmative for a period of time. But Novak's going to ask you to do that for 5 hours in best-of-5 set tennis. What I will say is Alexei can generate on serve and forehand in much the same mould as we saw Prismic the other evening. So he can hurt you.
Okay.
If he can maintain that level of firepower, that level of artillery, and that level of physicality for, as we say, 3, 4, and 5 sets for 3, 4, and 5 hours, he can test Djokovic. I'm not saying he can win the match, but he can certainly test Djokovic. But I'm inclined to agree with Chris. I think we get a ruthless response from the defending champion tomorrow night.
I mean, I think the thing about Djokovic is that he is the master over best-of-5 sets. And, you know, one of the fascinating things for me is if it comes to the Djokovic-Sinner semi-final, they played 3 times at the end of last year. Sinner won 2 of the 3. Yeah. That is a major statement, which makes it fascinating. But they were all over the best of 3 sets. So Sinner had to win 2. When people have to win 3 sets against Djokovic, it is that 3rd set that is so difficult. And I can see Popyrin winning a set. I mean, I think Djokovic will try and ensure it doesn't happen, but there's no question Popyrin has the weapons. Last year was his best year, career high rankings all through the year. He's playing well, but to win 3 sets against Djokovic, and one of the reasons why Djokovic is so good over best of 5 is that he manages his energy. He knows that he will go through phases where he's not playing that well. He generally knows when he can afford to not let a couple of service games go, but, you know, that it doesn't matter too much because he knows, you see him almost, there's something in his eyes where he says, right, for the next 5 games, I'm not going to miss a ball. And almost always he doesn't miss a ball. And that's what makes him so good. He knows when to peak.
Any final thoughts on this one?
No, I'm looking forward to it. I really hope Alexei puts his best foot forward, brings his best stuff to the table. I think if he does, it can be a really appetizing, enticing clash to witness, and I'm looking forward to watching it, but it's a heck of a task.
I think there's a comment, a quote that I feel was originally put out by Lindsay Davenport, but it was probably somebody before her, that you don't win a Grand Slam in the first week, but you can lose one. I don't see Djokovic in danger of losing against Popyrin, but I do think that having played 4 hours on Sunday, even with 2 days off, his chances of being in peak shape for the sharp end of this tournament depend on him dropping no more than a set in his next 2 or 3 matches.
All right, a quick prediction. I think you're both saying Djokovic. How many
I'm
sets?
Djokovic in 3 or 4, probably 3.
Yeah, 3 tight sets. 3 tight sets. If Alexei comes out firing, he can push him to a 4th.
Thank you, Simon, Chris Bowers, for your expert thoughts on the AO show.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.